Hurry, come with me.
Help! Miss Martha! Miss Martha!
Amy!
Help!
What happened? Are you all right? How did he get here?
He was all alone in the woods. I couldn't leave him there to die.
You know you're not supposed to go that far.
Is he dead?
No, not yet. Quick, we need to move him to the porch.
And that is a clip from The Beguiled, and I'm delighted to say we've been joined by its director and screenwriter, Sofia Coppola. Hello, Sofia, how are you?
Hello, good, thanks.
Thank you very much indeed for talking to us. I want to talk about, I don't think I've ever addressed this before, but in your movie, one of the first things that we see is the title, okay? Now, that's actually quite rare in some movies. You don't get the title after about 10, 15 minutes. The script, the font that The Beguiled is written in, people would be familiar with this. They'll have seen it on the posters maybe. But
It's different on the posters.
But it's big and it's pink and it's very florid and it's, I don't know, Southern Gothic. I don't know what the right font name is, but it says sort of Gone with the Wind. It says, do you know what that font is? And
it was designed by my friend Peter Miles, who's a graphic designer. I think he created it, but I don't know what that font is called. I have to ask him, but it's very melodramatic. And,
it is.
And yeah, I loved that he did it that way.
It's like a statement, before if you froze it, and you were doing a film studies class, you pointed it because it's got some stunning scenery in the background anyway. So what is the message that is coming from just the letters of The Beguiled?
Yeah, it's amazing, all the kind of elements that can, you're starting the story and introducing that world. And also it was a tradition in older movies, maybe like in the 50s or 40s, to have a large kind of grand film title, which kind of has gone out of fashion lately.
And this it absolutely fills the screen. So tell us the story of The Beguiled. Now, this was a novel in 1966 by Thomas P. Cullinan. Then it's a movie in 1971 starring Clint Eastwood, directed by Don Siegel. I hadn't seen it before. I did watch the trailer for it. I watched a couple of minutes of it.
Pretty sordid.
Yesterday. It is, and not at all the movie which you've made. But just tell us how you came to tell this story.
Yeah, a friend of mine told me, you have to watch The Beguiled, the 71 Don Siegel movie, and I think you should remake it. And I was like, I would never remake a movie. What are you talking about? But I had never seen the film. It's not very known in America except for with people that really know movies, and it's sort of this genre B-movie classic that's, beloved in its way. And it was just, the story stayed in my mind because there's a shift, a turn in the story that I just wasn't expecting, and I was really surprised by, and it just stayed in my mind, and how it was about a group of women in this Southern girls' school. They take in a wounded enemy soldier, and it's what happens in this house, and very claustrophobic. And the Don Siegel film was made from the very male point of view of the soldier, of these women. And I thought, I would love to see this story from the female character's point of view, because it's a group of women living together. And so I felt like I went back to the book, which was out of print, and I thought, you could really make a very different movie. It doesn't have to be a remake of that, but the premise was so rich to tell another story from the same premise.
Was the Don Siegel movie quite similar to the book? Or is your version more similar to the book?
I think mine is more similar to the book, but they have elements. It's definitely all based on the same material, but, the filmmaker or the writer, you edit the book to choose what you want to focus on.
Sure.
And that was more like an exploitation kind of tawdry thing.
And this isn't tawdry.
It's like a male fantasy turned nightmare. And this.
So who are the women and who are the girls in this seminary?
The main characters are Elle Fanning plays a kind of teenage student. Kirsten Dunst is the teacher, and Nicole Kidman plays the headmistress. And then there's some young actresses that play other students, and they're very cut off during wartime and isolated and confined to this abandoned mansion that was a girls' school, and they kind of have nowhere to go, and they haven't been around men for many years, and they're really isolated, and they take in this wounded soldier.
Yes, and this is Corporal John McBurney, played by Colin Farrell. And I think there's a number of people who will have... it's a very tense opening when we see one of the girls discovering a wounded Colin Farrell. And my first reaction was, it's Colin Farrell. I'd be very careful if I were you.
Oh, good. He has to be dangerous and intriguing.
Yes. Well, he absolutely is. So the cleverness of the title, certainly in English, is that for the first first few sections of the movie, he could be the Beguiled.
Yeah, I love that about the titles. You don't know who's the Beguiled. It's true when it's translated into other languages, it loses that. But yeah, that's what I like about it. And the whole story is really kind of this power shift back and forth of who can be trusted and is he a guest or a prisoner.
And he's a Yankee, so he's in enemy territory. But Colin is speaking in his native accent, so he's an Irish mercenary, essentially, and the script makes that very clear that he's just was paid money. How important is the fact that he's a mercenary?
Well, in the original book, he is an Irish immigrant. So when I met Colin and hearing him speak in his accent, I thought it adds another interesting element, and it makes it more exotic to these Southern women, and also they can kind of justify that maybe he isn't really fighting the cause, so maybe he's not really an enemy. I think it makes it a little more complicated. I
believe I'm right in saying that in the novel there are 2 black characters, and in the original movie there's one slave by the name of Hallie. But you decided to leave them out. What was your thinking there?
Yeah, there was a very stereotypical character in the book and in the movie, Hallie. I felt like it was too important of a story to just kind of brush over lightly in the very stereotypical way. It was the 70s, so they treated it in sort of an exploitation way, and I didn't want to incorporate that in the film, and really wanted to focus on the story about being about male and female and not bring in racial politics and not treat such an important part of history in a light way. And the film really isn't about the Civil War. To me, it's about this group of women and this man, and it's the backdrop is wartime, but it's really not getting into the political side.
It's interesting, yes, because the Civil War is extremely close, and one of the most atmospheric moments in the film is when we go outside and we hear the guns. And so the Civil War is absolutely part of the story, but like you said, it's not. We don't address the issues of the Civil War, and it could almost be any conflict that's happening beyond their walls.
Definitely, you could set it in another place or another time, and it's wartime in the distance, but it's really not about that.
Apart from the fact that you have turned the story around, so it's really about the women as opposed to being written from the Clint Eastwood, Colin Farrell character. Did you make significant changes to the characters of the women who run and then are students at this seminary?
I did. When I wrote all the characters, the women, I tried to make them really human and connect with them in a way that I could relate to. And in the 70s film, their sexual desire is kind of crazy and over the top, and I wanted to treat that in a human way and a way that you could relate to. So, and I thought about each one, making them each, full characters and not stereotypes.
Is it true that you sent them to classes to learn decorum and manners?
We did. We had an etiquette teacher, and we had a dance teacher and sewing teacher, and we had a Civil War reenactor teaching them how to do the bandaging. So we tried to learn as much as we could about what it was like for women to live at that time.
What kind of? I just wondered what your actors made of that, because they being given etiquette classes is
I think
unusual, to say the least.
Well, I think that they, were all open to learning more about women at that time, and we did everything together as a group. So they started to bond, and so when we were filming, you start to see that they've kind of bonded together as a group. And I think they wanted to learn that they were supposed to hold their skirts. And the South was so much, and still is, have that tradition of ladylike behavior and manners. So it was good to kind of steep ourselves in the culture of that time.
It must change the atmosphere on set a lot when the women outnumber the men by so much.
We had men on the crew too,
Sure,
but we did have a lot of women working on this, and it was a nice atmosphere to not be. Usually it's mostly men, so it was nice to have a mix, and I think it was fun for Colin to be surrounded by all these ladies.
Yes, I think a number of people will think, my word, Colin Farrell, you're having a tough time.
Yeah, he was lying on lacy pillows surrounded by great women.
And being sponged down by Nicole Kidman for how long? I mean, it's a long sequence in the movie. How long was he being sponged for?
Oh, I don't know how long, but yeah, he was he was laid still and was a good sport about all that.
But you get fantastic performances from Nicole Kidman, very subtle performance, just a raised eyebrow or a look of surprise, and there are a couple of times I'm thinking she knows this is funny. There are some laugh moments. And Kirsten Dunst, you've worked with so many times before, but she is so sad and so quiet.
Yes, I love seeing her play. Anytime you see an actress play a part that's very different from them, she's so bubbly in real life, and then this character is very repressed and quiet and vulnerable. And it was really fascinating to see her transform like that, and I think interesting to see.
She's been referred to, I think you might even refer to her as your muse. What is it about Kirsten Dunst that makes you go back to her?
I think you just connect with certain people, and I feel like she knows how to represent what I'm looking for, and we have a shorthand. But I just love her as an actress, and I feel like she can convey so much depth and emotion without saying much.
This is just a feeling that was any of it part improvised. I felt as though that it's a very ensemble piece anyway. That it's almost as though the conversations were very naturalistic.
Oh, that's good. Actually, the script was pretty precise because there was so much kind of subtext underneath it, so it wasn't improvised very much. But it feels real because I think the women really spent time together and put their humanity into it.
Is it true you were filming during the election?
Yes.
And that the result of the election happened while you were on set?
Yeah, we were all kind of excited about maybe the first woman president. We were getting ready to celebrate, so we were all in shock the next day. And it was interesting working on this movie that was so much about power between men and women, and then that election was, there was such an element of that.
Did you have to G them up the next day, say, all right, come on, we got a film to make here?
It was hard. Everyone was very depressed, and my mom wrote to me saying, you have to make art, that's all we can do. But we were all pretty down.
I think Kirsten said she cried actually that morning.
Yeah, there was a somber feeling. We were really all in shock.
I'm just aware that we've been doing this program a while, interviewing female directors is still a rarity. Do you get the feeling from your perspective that is funding your projects getting any easier? Is there a clearer role for women to direct movies now than there was, say, 10 years ago?
I don't think so. I don't think it's changed much since I started almost 20 years ago. It's always a struggle. But I think it's a struggle for any director making something in this conservative climate of our film business, that it's always a struggle to get something made that's kind of unusual and not fitting into a category specifically. But yeah, there's a lot of talk about that, and hopefully there's other women and other kinds of directors besides.
But you don't see any evidence of that particularly, if it's the same.
I mean, I got to make this movie, but it was a struggle, but it always is. No, I feel like there's an awareness that the female audience is a ticket buying audience, and it's a business. So like the fact that Wonder Woman was a huge hit is helpful, I think, to know that movies geared towards a female audience is a valid one.
Would you have been tempted by that?
No, I can't see myself doing that, but I'm happy I can't wait to see it.
Why wouldn't you see yourself doing a blockbuster?
Well, I'm not really a superhero person. I mean, I appreciate them, but I never thought about doing that. And blockbusters, I like making small, personal, artful films. And when something is more pressure to make money, there's different decisions that go into making it.
And what are you going to turn your attention to next, Sofia?
Oh, I'm not sure. I've been working on this for 2 years, so I'm really excited to get it out into the world and then take a break with my family and figure out what to do next.
You haven't got like 6 projects waiting to go?
I don't. I tend to finish one and then think about where my interests will go from there.
Sofia Coppola, we appreciate you spending some time with us. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.